One state found a way to turn a carry permit into almost nothing the moment you step into a normal business. Now, the Supreme Court is weighing that move, the Department of Justice is backing the challenge, and a big group of states is saying this kind of anti-carry red tape may have gone way too far. Quick question before we continue. Are you subscribed? Because this channel breaks down gun law changes in plain English, and missing one update like this could leave you dangerously behind. Hit that button now, and let's get into what just happened. Here's the big picture. The case everyone is watching is called Wolford v. Lopez. It is about a Hawaii law that says if you have a concealed carry permit, you still cannot carry on private property open to the public unless the owner gives express permission. In simple words, if a store, restaurant, gas station, or other business does not clearly say yes, the law treats that silence like a no. That is why a lot of people call it anti-carry red tape. It takes normal daily life and wraps it in legal guesswork. Let me break this down for you. Most people hear private property and stop right there. They think the case is easy. They say, well, it's private property, so what's the problem? But here's the crazy part. The problem is not whether an owner can ban guns. Owners can set rules on their own property. The real fight is over who gets to make the default rule when the owner says nothing. Is the default yes unless posted otherwise? Or is the default no unless the owner gives clear approval? That sounds like a small detail. It is not. That detail can control almost every step of your day. Imagine you are carrying legally. You stop for coffee, then you go to the bank, then the pharmacy, then the grocery store, then you grab dinner. Under Hawaii's rule, if those places are silent, that silence can turn into a criminal problem. Not because you threatened anyone, not because you misused your firearm, but because the state decided the lack of a sign means you are not allowed there with your firearm. That is why the challengers say the law does something very sneaky. They say it does not ban public carry with one giant sentence. Instead, it makes public carry so hard in normal public-facing places that the right becomes tiny in real life. On paper, you have a permit. In practice, you are constantly guessing where you can go. And that is where the DOJ stepped in. This is the part that shocked a lot of people. The Department of Justice filed in support of the gun owners challenging the Hawaii rule. The federal government argued that Hawaii's law effectively wipes out the public carry right by making carry illegal in the very places people normally visit. Think about that. The DOJ did not just stay neutral. It backed the challenge. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The DOJ's point was simple. A state cannot get around the Second Amendment by using an indirect trick. If the Constitution protects lawful public carry after Bruen, then a state cannot say, fine, you can carry in public, and then block carry in most everyday places open to the public unless a business jumps through special steps to allow it. In other words, you cannot respect the right in theory and kill it in practice. Here's what most people get wrong. They think this case is about forcing business owners to allow guns. It is not. Even the challengers are not saying that. If a business owner wants to ban firearms, they can do that. The argument is that the choice belongs to the owner, not to the state by default. That difference matters a lot. Let's use a hypothetical example to explain this. Say there's a family-owned diner. The owners have no problem with lawful concealed carry, but they never put up a sign because they are busy running a business, not studying gun laws. Under a normal default rule, you could carry unless they posted otherwise. Under Hawaii's rule, their silence does not help you. Their silence works against you. So the state ends up speaking for the owner, even when the owner never asked for that. And that is one reason 27 states jumped in to support the challenge too. They argued Hawaii flipped the traditional rule on its head. They said the state took a normal freedom and replaced it with a permission slip system. They also argued that the Ninth Circuit got it wrong when it upheld that part of Hawaii's law. If you are finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video about the exact words that can keep a routine police contact from turning into a bad day. Subscribe now so you don't miss it, because these details matter more than most gun owners realize. Now, let's talk about why this case got so big so fast. It all goes back to the Supreme Court's Bruen decision from 2022. That case said the Second Amendment protects carrying a handgun in public for self-defense. After that ruling, several states that did not like expanded carry rights started trying new ways to limit where people could carry. Some built giant sensitive place lists. Others used default rules like Hawaii's. The idea was simple. If you cannot stop permits outright, you make the permit less useful. But wait, there's something even more important. Hawaii is not the only place where this matters. Other states like California, New York, New Jersey, and Maryland have had similar rules or similar approaches. So this case is not just about one island state in the Pacific. It could shape the carry map for the whole country. Have you ever wondered how a right can be narrowed without being openly banned? This is how. The government adds layers, more signs, more technical rules, more places you cannot go, more moments where silence becomes risk before long, when the average person cannot tell what is legal anymore. And when people cannot tell what is legal, many stop exercising the right at all. That is how red tape works. Now, to be fair, supporters of Hawaii's law say this is really about property rights. Their argument is that no one should walk onto someone else's property with a gun unless the owner has said yes. They say the law simply respects the owner first. That argument has emotional power because people do care about control over their own property. But the challengers push back hard on that. They say property owners already had power to say no. So the issue is not owner control. The issue is the state taking over that decision in advance and using criminal law to do it. Most people think those are the same thing. They are not. This is also where the oral argument got very telling. Several justices seemed skeptical of Hawaii's position. Questions from the bench suggested concern that Hawaii was treating the Second Amendment like a second-class right. One justice pressed the idea that you do not usually make people get special permission before entering ordinary businesses while exercising a constitutional right. Another justice raised concerns about how extreme the affirmative consent rule could become. Now, quick legal note, this is educational information, not legal advice. Always consult an attorney for your specific situation. Here's the part nobody's talking about enough. As of right now, the final Supreme Court opinion is not out yet. That matters. A lot of headlines make it sound like the case is already over. It is not. What has happened is still huge. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the case. The DOJ backed the challenge. A 27-state coalition backed the challenge, and the oral argument suggested real trouble for Hawaii's rule. But until the opinion drops, you do not have a final national rule from this case. So, what should you take away today? First, do not trust a headline more than the actual status of a case. Second, understand that the fight is over default rules, not just signs on doors. Third, realize how much everyday carry depends on tiny legal details. Hey, 73% of people watching right now aren't subscribed. Don't be part of that group. Join the gun owners who come here for straight talk without the legal fog. Click subscribe so you catch the next update the second it drops. Let me explain why this matters to you, even if you do not live in Hawaii. If the court strikes down Hawaii's rule, that would send a message to every state thinking about using similar tricks. It would say you cannot turn a carry permit into a guessing game by criminalizing carry in most businesses unless an owner gives advance approval. That could weaken similar laws in other states and stop new versions from spreading. On the other hand, if Hawaii wins, states hostile to carry rights may take that as a green light. They may say, perfect. We do not have to ban carry outright. We just make carry illegal. In most places, people actually go unless the owner opts in. That is why this case feels bigger than one statute. It is about whether a state can make the exercise of a right depend on silence, uncertainty, and fear. Let's walk through a real-world scenario. Imagine you are on a road trip. You're lawful. Your permit is valid. You pull over for fuel in a state with a rule like this. The gas station has no sign about firearms. You go inside to pay. Under a normal carry system, you might assume you are okay unless the owner says otherwise. Under a rule like Hawaii's, that assumption could be exactly what gets you in trouble. Same permit, same conduct, totally different legal outcome based on a hidden default. Don't make this mistake. Do not assume no sign always means good to go. In some places, silence can hurt you. That is one reason cases like this matter so much. They expose how dangerous legal assumptions can be. Second thing you need to watch is the history argument. After Bruen, courts are supposed to look at the text of the Second Amendment and the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. Hawaii argued there were old laws that support requiring consent before carrying on private property. The challengers and the DOJ answered that those old laws do not fit well, and some examples Hawaii relied on were bad historical comparisons. That fight may sound academic, but it decides whether modern restrictions survive or die. Third, remember that the law was still on hold during the Supreme Court appeal. That means the legal map can stay confusing while the case is pending. Some people hear the law is challenged and think the law vanished. Not always. Some hear the court heard argument and think a victory is locked in. Also not true. Timing matters, procedure matters, status matters. This is the part that shocked me the most. A permit holder can do everything right, train, apply, pay fees, pass the checks, follow the rules, and still be placed in legal danger by vague carry boundaries that change from parking lot to storefront to sidewalk. That is exactly why people call this red tape. It is not just annoying. It can expose decent people to serious legal risk. And there is one more layer. The states supporting the challenge argue that Hawaii's rule clashes with how many Americans understand ordinary business access. In plain English, when a place opens to the public, people usually assume they may enter unless told otherwise. The coalition says Hawaii used that open door idea for everyone except lawful carriers. That selective burden is what makes the rule look constitutionally weak. So what should you do while waiting for the decision? Know your own state law, read posted signs carefully. Do not assume another state works like yours. If you travel, check the current carry rules before you cross the border. And if you are in a state with confusing rules, get real legal advice before trusting what somebody says online. Laws change fast, really fast. And this information could become even more important the day the court releases its opinion. Subscribe now, because the next video will walk through exactly what the decision means for your state, your permit, and the places you can legally carry. Here's the bottom line. Wolford v. Lopez is not just a fight over one Hawaii law. It is a test of whether states can bury lawful carry under default rules that make normal life risky. The DOJ and a large group of states have lined up against that approach, and the Supreme Court's final answer could reshape carry rules far beyond Hawaii. So stay alert, stay informed, and please don't be the person who learns about a major gun law change after it affects your rights. Subscribe, share this with one friend who carries, and stick with this channel if you want plain English updates without the nonsense. And one last thing, this video is for education only. It is not legal advice, and gun laws can change fast, so always check current law and talk to a qualified attorney about your specific situation.